I'll be starting with writing with a purpose. So, in writing with a purpose, for me, it really boiled down to having a topic that I thoroughly enjoyed and wanted to write about. And for this, it started all with our character sheets in the beginning, when you had us choose teams to help us develop at the beginning, and we would choose based off of the topics that they wanted to look into, and we would write ours. So ever since the beginning of class, I've known the general idea of where I wanted to take it, and as we continued, I would, further delve in, dwell into what I wanted, get more specific on it. Everything was further developed in our critique and research queue worksheet, where we had to look into the secondary sources and look at their arguments, and much like my previous experience in writing, look for gaps and such. And even after we were already looking at secondary sources, I had the chance to once again go back to my research question and develop it more. This time as well, I had friends of mine who were interested in the same topic take a look at my question and help me get into the core of what I really wanted to know. I had a bigger purpose, as I have friends who want to write and draw like I do, and I was trying to write a paper that would not only teach me but teach them as well and help me spread what I'm learning. So that's for writing with a purpose. What I wanted to get into next was integrating secondary sources and writing with authority. So I had experience already with secondary sources last semester, but those sources were already there and given to me. This time I had the ability to go out there and use the crap sheets to find my own and really test them out and keep what I wanted and take out what I didn't want. So I did fail at finding some. Well, I guess I didn't fail, but some failed my crap sheet test. And when you made us battle it out, I don't have the the battle sheet for how many points we lost. But when we had to battle it out, and a lot of mine lost. For some, I could find a reason to protect, but for others, I couldn't. I couldn't protect at all. I couldn't make an argument for them, and for those, I just had to get rid of. It helped me look further into secondary sources and look at things that I would have never considered, such as if when it was produced, its time, like 1956 or so, 1960s, 1970s, for my topic in writing, whether or not it still remained relevant. And so I came across two different things. One was, for books, I deemed it relevant because literature is a little more timeless and isn't really restricted within time. It's just language might be harder to understand, or certain topics might not be as acceptable anymore. So, for things that were from the 1970s or so, I was okay with. So I had this one from 1999. That's not that long ago, but even then, it might seem a little, outdated. The content in which they reviewed in here was content of Edgar Allan Poe. And so I deemed it valuable for me to use this as a source. Because, it contains things that we can still integrate now in literature. Now, one that I don't have, because the link for the actual journal or whatever, it wasn't available anymore, was one from the 1970s for film analysis. That one I could not keep. because film is something that gets dated a little bit. While it might be valuable to look at how film used to be done and how we can incorporate it now, to have a full dissection of old film instead of one that was a little more modern was not it's not valuable to me, and so I had to just get rid of it. And so the gaps I saw were greater and more focused on when I was creating my question, when I was creating my paper. I took special care to pick things, to be picky with my sources and make sure that I really was going to read something that might work in my paper more than anything else that I could have used that might have just been useless fodder and really served no point. The final thing I want to write about is my research process. Now, my research process for my paper last semester was to do interviews. And I made my own research log, and and that was my first experience with that. Here it grew with when I learned that one form of research is data analysis. That changed my paper. Like, it really helped my question. It really helped me go for what I wanted, and it just perfectly fit for mine. So for this, it was something that I already did. I read manga and I like to analyze, I'd like to dissect, I'd like to get into the meat of why it worked and why some didn't work. So looking into, what I wanted to look for specifically, writing down a checklist of what I was going to look for and why, which manga I ended up choosing and why, and just being able to give reason to what I was doing and have what I was doing fit so perfectly for my paper, has kind of opened my mind to, other ways of research. This one I would have never thought was a form of research. I'm not too experienced, or I'm not too good in writing papers and researching, and English is a weak topic of mine. So things like this where I can learn and see new ways to make it easier and digestible for me, and have myself be more proficient and make my paper have more worth than it would have had otherwise. It really helps. So after this, I broke down the analysis in a worksheet, which last semester I didn't do. I didn't break down my analysis. I had my analysis and, mentally I made checks, but I never wrote it down. And writing it down brought up interesting things. Especially the part where I find things that I don't agree with. This time it wasn't more of, what I didn't agree with, but just having an opposite side of the argument, analyzing the manga gave me, different data to work with. And it's not that I was trying to make an argument for one more than the other. It was just I was acknowledging both and using both to come up with an argument of why each one did what they did and how they might have did it wrong or correctly. I tried to avoid opinions and went more for what they could have been thinking and why they made the decision they did. So with this, I had already tested out data analysis because I had done it, but again, I got a short manga, I read it and I used it, and I tried to see if my analysis worksheet worked. Before going and delving into the full analysis, I applied it to one manga and saw if it worked. And once I knew that it was a good analysis and that I would get what I wanted to get, I went ahead and used it. And so for research process, The data analysis has really, not really revolutionized, but I guess inspired a new way to think in me. Looking looking into possibilities for what I could use to my advantage whenever I'm researching. To get what I want in researching and just being able to go for it.